Hello folks, welcome to IL2. We're in the BigScreen Beyond using the Reality H2, and I think it's about time I gave you my verdict on the BigScreen Beyond. I've now had it for quite a while, and it's taken me that amount of time to really come to a conclusion and what I think about the headset, the good and the bad, and whether this could be your next VR headset. So first of all, I think the most obvious thing to say really is the fact that the form factor of this headset is the party piece of what this offers. It's really incredible, and it's quite hard to describe how it feels when I'm moving my head around and just generally, in the cockpit looking around, especially when dogfighting, just not really feeling like you've got a headset on. Now don't get me wrong, it's not completely seamless or anything, but comparing this to any other headset, even the super comfortable like Aero and the Pico, it is very comfortable. However, now that I've had it for a while, I did say to begin with that this headset is the most comfortable headset I've ever worn. Well, I'm going to have to retract that one because that's not actually true now. The reason is because after a couple of hours I start to feel quite clammy in the headset, and that is simply because it has no ventilation and the facial interface is molded and specifically scanned to your face shape, so there is absolutely zero light leakage, which is great, which is like that on other VR headsets. But what that means is there's no air getting through to my eyes. Now today it's actually quite a cool day, it's raining, and this is great. I've been flying now for about over an hour. I still feel great, but generally speaking, even on a sort of normal day, after a couple of hours I definitely want to sort of move it off my face. It feels a little bit sticky, you know what I mean? It's not really necessarily sweat, but it's just, I guess, the lack of air on my skin, it starts to feel a bit clammy. Now for that reason alone is the reason why it's not the most comfortable headset I've ever worn. In fact, the Vive Aero is the most comfortable headset I've ever worn to date, and this is probably second to that. So if that kind of thing does bother you, then it's definitely worth considering that you're going to have a fan pointed at you or something just to keep cool in VR. It is a shame really, because this form factor is absolutely a generational leap in design. It's fantastic, and this is where we need to be going. I do feel it would benefit from a top strap actually, because even with this being so light, after a while you can feel a bit of weight on the the bridge of your nose as well. So I was quite surprised, even though the first hour or so is like incredible, for a long session I could cope more with the Aero and Crystal, having that on for longer than I could with the BigScreen Beyond, even though this is lighter. So the second thing to mention is the field of view. Now that's going to be very personal to you, but for me, I'm really blown away with what they've managed to achieve with the field of view of this headset, considering it is, it's absolutely tiny. The horizontal field of view reminds me very much of the Pico 4. Now it's funny, my friend Seb from MRTV, he actually disagrees with me. He thinks it's more like a Quest 2, but it depends on your face shape, because Marco said it's very similar to a Pico 4 as well. So that is going to be a personal thing, but overall I think they've done amazing with the canted displays and whatever technical magical things they've done with this headset. The field of view is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's good even for a big headset, but considering the form factor, it is superb. No complaints there whatsoever. So let's talk about the display clarity. It is beautiful in this thing. It really is very, very nice. I think if you're coming from anything other than an Aero or Crystal, you're going to be blown away with the clarity. It reminds me of the Reverb G2 actually, very much so in the center point. You have a much larger sweet spot as well, because it is pancake lenses. Talking of the lenses, this is where things do fall down a little bit for me. Because of the stacked lens design, there is glare and God rays as well. In fact, even looking down now at the cockpit gauges, I can see a bit of fogging of the lenses. Now if you're coming from a Valve Index or perhaps even a Reverb G2, then it might not bother you so much, because they do have a bit of glare. especially something like the Vive Pro 2, which was awful. And I think the Valve Index is pretty bad, actually, for glare as well. It's not as bad as that, but it is there, and it took me a while to get used to it. Now, I will say, having now used the headset as my primary, sort of daily driver for the last couple of weeks, it's not so much an issue now as it was before. But it's not until I go back to, the Aero and Crystal, where it then shocks me again, not having any glare at all. So that is probably the worst thing about this headset for me, is the glare. Now please bear in mind, as I'm saying all this, this is a pre-production unit. I mean, I can't imagine things are going to change that much now. But a massive shout out to BigScreen Beyond for sending this across, and hopefully, fingers crossed, they will have a final unit for me in the not so distant future, and I will review that as well. Because you have to remember, guys, this is the pre-production model. So there is a possibility that things may change. I can't imagine at this late stage it's going to be, a huge amount. That's going to make a big difference to the experience. So to recap, I'm not really a massive fan of the optics, although I am getting used to it. Visual clarity is excellent. The sweet spot is pretty good. It's not the best I've seen, but it's not the worst either. I can move my eyes around quite well. Field of view is absolutely excellent. The comfort is very, very good. A little bit disappointed it wasn't, better than what it actually is over a long session, because it is super light, this thing. But in terms of, the feeling of the headset on your face, moving around, I won't do it too much because I know it's a bit nauseating when you're watching. In fact, we'll do it in a minute. Now we've got some fighters up ahead. When you really are straining your neck, looking around, it is an absolute joy compared to other headsets. Right then, so as we start to engage the enemy fighters in our Typhoon, I will mention the software. It is brilliant, really. The software is excellent. It's very minimalist. This is a native SteamVR headset, okay? So that means, unfortunately, there's no OpenXR integration, as far as I'm aware anyway. That is a shame. That is a bit of a shame. But I must say, it does run really, really well. And SteamVR, wow, is actually, it's definitely improved over the years. It's, it's nice to have gone back to trying it again, because it's been a while. And I must admit, it's not bad at all, really, especially for a native PC VR headset. There's less that's in the way, in terms of any other software that needs to be run in the middle. So it does run pretty well. But it is a shame that no OpenXR support is available at this time anyway. So yeah, visual clarity is great. As you can see, I'm looking at all of the fighter aircraft here, and I don't really need labels. I could even get away with super sampling this headset. I haven't done it for this video, and I'm still probably going to get easy 90 frames per second using SteamVR with my computer, which, by the way, today I'm running the 3900K with an RTX 4090. So let's talk about the colours of this headset. Of course, it's micro OLED, which means the colours are absolutely phenomenal. They really are superb. The best, really. You're not going to get any better than this, especially for black levels and that kind of thing. It's absolutely spectacular. I will say, though, the Crystal isn't far off. In fact, in some ways, it's better because the Crystal has a brighter display. This, even though I'm looking at the sun now, that feels bright. It's not as bright as the Crystal. So again, if that is something that's important to you, then that might be a bit of a deal breaker, but honestly, I don't feel it is. I don't particularly like a headset to be too bright anyway, so it's not an issue for me. But there's no doubt about it, coming from the Aero and Crystal and the Reverb G2, this is definitely not as bright, even on the brightest setting. Look at this, look. Wow. Tell you, enjoying flight sims at 90 frames per second. Sorry, I keep saying 90 frames per second. That's wrong. I'm actually running 75 frames per second because I'm running 75 hertz. So, yeah, ignore me what I've just said there. I'm so used to saying 90 frames per second. Look, we're all on this guy here. Seems a bit unfair, really. Let's just follow him down here. Wow. So another thing to mention is the fact that this display is running at 75 Hz, as I've just mentioned. It's funny though, because I think every reviewer that's going to mention the refresh rate is going to say it's a negative, that it doesn't have 120 Hz or 144 Hz. But for me, it's a positive, because being a flight simmer, there's less, there's more headroom in terms of my performance. Running at 75 frames per second with the 4090 in VR is actually really easy for it. And I'm pleased to say that 75 Hz feels absolutely fantastic. There's no flashing, it feels very comfortable. It doesn't feel nauseating or anything like that. I do find that the Quest 2, what else? The Reverb G2, well, that was 60 Hz to be fair. Usually lower refresh rates aren't that very nice, but with this, it's not a problem at all. It feels absolutely fine, so I think that's a positive for flight simmers, that you can run this at native resolution at 75 Hz, no problems at all. So, to recap then, what do I really think? What's my verdict on this headset? It's one of those devices that doesn't really blow you away straight away, like I thought it would, apart from the obvious, the form factor, which is fantastic. That does blow you away straight away. But when you look at the visuals, you know, for me, I felt quite frustrated. I just wish there wasn't so much glare, and I wish the sweet spot was just a bit better for pancake lenses. So I was a bit disappointed at first, but when using the headset over many weeks, like I've done now, going back to other headsets like the Aero, like the G2, like the Crystal especially, it's a bit of a shocker, because you soon realise the weight and the bulkiness of other headsets. You soon get used to this because it's very natural on, you know, obviously it's moulded to your face. It just feels so comfortable. So if any of those points that I've just mentioned are things that really excite you, that is the form factor, the micro OLED display, the field of view for such a small headset as well, and you're not bothered about being too sweaty in VR from time to time, then I really do think this could be your next VR headset. Absolutely. I also think there's something quite amazing about being an early adopter of this technology, because there really isn't anything else out there that's like this at all. It's just superb. I think BigScreen Beyond need to be applauded for really pushing the boundaries as well. So one more negative I need to mention before I forget, because the reason why I forget this is because it's not a massive deal breaker, but looking out now at the sky, I can see on the real sort of like 2% of the edge of the screen colour banding or colour distortions. That is a bit of a brown tinting. It seems to be a thing with micro OLED displays that is you know, very visible. I'm not quite sure why that is the case. Again, it doesn't bother me at all, but I do need to mention it as another negative. You have to remember, folks, that this headset does need base stations, so you need to factor that into the cost, which is over £1,000. But you do benefit from the best tracking, you know, that you can get. I mean, it's absolutely flawless tracking on this. In fact, I'm quite surprised, considering how small this headset is, that the tracking is still very, very good. So, question is this now my favourite headset? That's a good question, isn't it? Well, let's just see if we can... I'm not sure if we're going to be very successful here. Yes, we did. We got him. Brilliant. No, it's not. This is not my favourite headset. I also missed the audio. Obviously, at the moment, there's no audio on this, although the microphone is the best I've ever heard. But those things alone, for me, are important as a flight simmer. I need to see the dials. I want to see all the details, every single, you know, switch and small bit of text. You know, with the spheric lenses, you kind of almost forget that you're looking through lenses, because they're so good. So as always, these things are not so clear-cut, especially when there's something this bespoke and niche. I think there's definitely a market out there for this headset. In fact, a number of my Discordians are very excited about receiving their BigScreen Beyonds. I really hope that I can check out the final unit. Oh yeah, one other thing I want to mention. There's zero Mura in this thing. In terms of the panel consistency, the pixel consistencies rather, it is really nice. Wow, that was close. He took me out then. It just looked really, really good. No Mura at all as I'm looking there at the sky.
Returning to base.
Right, I'm supposed to be returning to base now, but kind of want to have some fun with these 109s. Oh, look at this guy. Thankfully got out in time. Ouch. So folks, I hope you enjoyed that video today. Overall, I absolutely love this headset. I think it's fantastic. But there is some issues. As I've mentioned, it's not perfect. And, you know, have a think about the things I've said. And if they are deal breakers for you, then I'd recommend either waiting or perhaps, you know, looking at another headset like the Crystal. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I truly appreciate it. Please feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.